So I'm Revital. I'm the head of QA automation at ContextStream. We were a startup that was acquired by HPE about a year ago. And actually, me and my team started working with OpenDaylight a few months ago. And when I started making the testing plans which features I want to test and how, I noticed a huge gap in ODL for me at least. And it's about the difference between testing tasks and dev tasks and how they are being handled. So let's start. Hi, Gidi. Oh, we were waiting for you.
They're doing the release discussion right now. Everybody's.
Okay, we'll do it anyway. Okay, so I just presented myself. So, okay, so project testing in ODL. So actually, like I said, when I started making the testing plans, I noticed that I couldn't find any place where I can see what other people in each project are doing regarding testing. Like in NetVirt, for example, for the dev tasks, you have Trello boards where you can track who is implementing which feature. So I signed up for the integration project, and then all I saw there were infra issues that VMs are failing and reports that are being fixed, but I couldn't find where people say which kind of features they are going to test and how. And in dev tasks, it's already being handled pretty well. So no visibility of testing effort being done, and people are doing the same work. Like for Boron, we have features that we know that other companies are also interested in, and for sure doing all kinds of testing, but we have no idea what they're doing and if there's some area of the code that is not being tested at all. So of course, if we can track testing tasks, we can improve our testing coverage, we can save time, and then more automated tests will be written and be upstreamed, and then we can achieve better quality. So I just there's no easy fix that will be suitable for all projects, but I think there are some stuff that we can do, but I'll be glad to hear from the people here what they think about it. I suggested opening Trello board for QA tasks, maybe start saying what kind of test we're going to do in each version and how, and also document manual testing in order to save time.
Yeah, I think the problem you're noticing is that the integration group covers everything, including tests, and tests has kind of not been a focus of the group as a whole. So when you join the integration list, you don't see anything about tests.
Yeah.
And the other problem is that system test is up to each project. The controller project needs to do their own system tests. Some company needs to pay some person to do system tests in controller, unless if that's HP or that's Red Hat or whatever it is, but they don't have that right now. I know that. And all the projects have that problem. Some projects are better than others. Like OpenFlow plugin is a good one. They have Luis Gomez that does OpenFlow plugin system tests, and Peter Budka. It's like a people problem at this point.
Yeah, but I didn't want to, my main interest is in NetVirt, okay?
Yeah.
And I didn't want to solve it, using my team and my company and just, I don't know, uploading a document and saying what we're going to do and maybe, hopefully, solve the problem for the NetVirt project.
Yeah.
I think that if we can establish some kind of process that everyone can use, so we can help other projects as well, because we are dependent on other project also. So I didn't want to solve it, by doing something just for the project that I'm working on.
So the integration test group should be more focused on test.
Yeah, but
or
then
we create a new group.
Yeah, but then who will fix all the? Because a lot of the stuff that the integration is dealing with is cross project. All the infra issues.
Yeah.
So someone needs to do it. It's not like that the NetVirt developers can do it, and each project can take responsibility for the infra.
So is it time for a just completely test-specific group that doesn't care about infra?
Well, so how is this problem solved with OpenStack today? Because my understanding was they wouldn't give you a +2 in commits unless you proved that you were doing some type of tests associated. So are we policing yet?
But the problem is it's not that there are no tests, okay? But you don't know what these tests cover, and you can write some kind of test that doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
There's nothing visible about which kind of tests are being done. And like I said, when you write code, so you upstream it, and then you see the feature was implemented. But if someone is doing manual testing, it can contribute for me, but I have no idea about it at all. And also automated tests. Some people do automated tests and they don't upstream it because they don't have time, because it's complicated and whatever. And again, testing being done that I can benefit from, and I don't even know about it.
I think it's a valid point in terms of governance of quality in general. If you have a procedure even that you need to, by the end of the release or at a certain milestone, you upload certain testing documents or you upload your automated tests in a certain format, then you're already encouraging the projects to have a certain quality process that's common to the entire community.
So we do have certain release milestones. You have to do a system test audit. JMO spends a week and the release manager going through that with projects and looking at all their system tests and verifying that they actually are real tests that do real things, and then labeling the project as experimental if they don't have meet our test case expectations, which is a well-defined wiki with pretty clear metrics that we want. Regarding the point about enforcing it via +2s, one impossibility, I guess, of enforcing that at a global level is that projects have their own committers and their own structures. And so the projects themselves can enforce whatever standards that they want. And some of them do have very high standards and some of them don't. And I don't think that it would be hard, I think, to get enough insight into these very distinct groups to enforce that at a bigger level. Maybe there's some ideas there, but I don't know how to work.
But you do have like the development guidelines for all projects, right? You do have similar standards for all projects, and I think it can be implemented for testing also. If projects will have to declare what kind of testing they're going to do in each release, and commit to upstream some of it, and at least say that they're going to test this manually. I know that things can change.
That's what they do. They have to do that right now.
So
we didn't see any.
Yeah, they're supposed to do system tests, and if they're not going to, they have to ask for a waiver, and then we approve the waiver based on whatever reasoning, and then they do what they say they do, and whether or not they did a good job is up to them.
Yeah, but if I have like a feature called security groups, I can write one test, and then from the ODL perspective, I'm fine, right?
You are, and
Yeah.
it sucks.
But I mean, the project itself, the people who are in integration tests, for example, they don't have the scope to look at 55 projects. There's no way.
Yeah, I know.
So there's that problem. There's a limited amount of resources. So you have to, at some level, rely on the projects to, first of all, write good test plans about what they're going to test in a feature, and then contribute to helping do that. So it's not. We could do it if we had more resources, sure. But
To say that a different way, we can't have really excellent insight into the very specifics of the test in all of these projects. We can do audits at certain times in the release of higher level descriptions of what they have or haven't done. And that's what we do now. Maybe that's that's not working as it should.
But is there a way to take a look at when it's roll on release and have some kind of metrics saying per project, generated by the projects, suggesting that it be done in for every project, this is the feature list and this is the test coverage. And even not in terms of how well something was tested, because I agree that's difficult to enforce. I mean, it's valid to say, okay, we have 3 features and we've tested 2. So that someone that comes and consumes that code knows that these features have been tested, or maybe even the number of tested have been written, so there's some kind of quality mark.
Yeah, and so that's not dissimilar from what we have. So when we talk about doing these audits, they're based on features, not projects. So the sort of test documentation, the key thing says, what's your feature? How are you doing the testing? Link us to your automated test, or show us your sort of manual one-off test and document how you're doing that. And if you don't have your automated test, then come email this list and ask for a waiver and make sure that you're not
And if their
bullshit.
tests aren't passing, then they're considered an experimental feature.
Right.
Like Network's a good example, they have 2 implementations. The old one, not experimental, and the new one, it is experimental. So the network project itself has 2 different features that have 2 different, and that's new in this release. So we're trying to improve it somehow. It kind of works. Some projects really don't care.
About that. And then they are being marked as experimental?
And they are, yeah.
There's also another component to this. Right now, the visibility is tough, and I think that that's part of what
That's
we're
my
talking
next
about.
session.
Yeah, and I think the next session is about a dashboard of some sort. We've actually had this conversation ad infinitum, where we talked about how we can make it more visible, what kind of dashboard we can use. It's always been a resource problem, and it's always mainly somebody to actually do the work, where other people have various things they're working on. But yeah, I mean, I think that it leads directly into that question, like how do we visualize this to make it useful for people to look at?
But actually, I do think that companies like us or Red Hat, they do additional testing. Okay, maybe from the open source perspective, like NetWeird will be in the new implementation will be experimental, but they have products and they're doing testing in-house. And I think that if everyone can benefit from declaring what they're doing and maybe sharing the features. Okay, so NetWeird is experimental, but people will have products with NetWeird.
Yeah.
But they don't upstream the test and they're not declaring what kind of even manual test they're doing, so people actually waste time.
I know, but
Yeah.
who's gonna,
Yeah, so that's the
How do
question.
we get them to sort of be more open and contribute that information, I guess? I think it's good to have a conversation because I don't even think people talk about it. It's all an assumption that we have. If you have a product based on this, you have a distribution or something like that, you're not going to just take, if you're just taking the stuff that's working in OpenDaylight right now, what are you adding to it? And how do you know that your product's, So I guess the question is, to make this a useful conversation, how can we get to a place where we get people to care about contributing that stuff upstream, talking about what they actually have?
So actually, I thought it is a good idea to open another group because you need a group that it's the main focus. And right now, integration tests are dealing mainly with infra issues. And yes, it's important to fix, Jenkins not working and reports that are failing. You can say it's less important, but you need people that their main concern is what kind of tests are being done and just enforce these policies.
probably time for that.
I mean, the last seminar we talked about integration as a whole. It was one monolithic group.
Yeah.
And we split it into 3. We split it into distribution, test, and packaging because we realized that there were specific areas where people were working and they didn't really have cross, visibility.
Yeah.
And so
It's not clear to me that that's not exactly what integration test is supposed to do. I mean, that's
It
my...
is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and so maybe the perspective that you have around us focusing on, and test focusing on input issues, is that from like the calls and what we discuss on the weekly calls and stuff?
And the mails also.
So I mean, probably some of that impression is because there's just a really tight relationship between the RELNG and LF admins. and the integration test people, and so we share our weekly call. So it's not just an integration test call, it's integration test, packaging, range, and distribution, and
There's probably another part of that impression, which is that we moved to a private cloud and it broke a bunch of things. And we moved back to
Yeah.
this was the worst release ever for infrastructure.
Yeah, but-
So basically, everyone, that's what they're working on, trying to figure out how do we get our tests running again in this new environment.
Yeah, but that's exactly my problem. These things are important and you need to do it, and they will always happen. Maybe in Boron it was worse than other releases, but it can happen, and you can't have the same group dealing with testing and infra issues.
I think you can. And I mean, if we could magic a bunch of other resources into existence that would be happy to specialize on tests, that's awesome. But from a creation of test standpoint, your first step is around creating these Jenkins jobs and stuff, and so you have to care about the infra as you create your tests. They're really tightly coupled. Sort of your description of how your test environment is created using JJB and the robot logic that runs in that. When you send a test patch, you have to send 2 patches to make both of these.
I think I have an example. Did you know he's working on network scale?
Mm.
She doesn't know that, and she should. Right?
Yeah.
So
There's
how's
a-
that become visible?
There's an interesting, I mean, I understand the problem. I mean, we do talk about testing in various places, but it's usually not on the listserv, or it's usually not on the call. We usually not are
Yeah.
discussing about testing and how we're doing it.
Yeah.
I'm undecided about whether you create a whole new group, but I see where there's a problem as far as the communication of what's happening and the general just focus on, okay, how do we actually just work on tests separate from the things that allow the tests to happen. But yeah, I'm not sure if I'm really on board
Well,
with creating a new.
like you said, we had integration, just one project, and we realized, well, it's really 3 different things. So last summit, we decided to split, and now we're split,
But it's
and
the
we're
same.
still acting like one big project.
Yeah, it's the same people working on the
Yeah.
3. So that's what I'm saying, that you will always get sucked into the info issues because they are important, and you lose visibility if the jobs are not running. But each release you can encounter all those problems, and you can't have the same people caring about both
So
stuff.
what should we do?
Yeah, that's the question in my mind too. I mean, we can create more divisions, but that's still going to have the same small set of people working on it. Like, I think what we need is more people to come focus on test, and they can just, in their mind, think of themselves as integration test people who are focused on tests. And when we have these big discussions about infra, they'll volunteer to work on infra stuff. Which is, I guess, I think people do.
There is value though in dividing where you have the conversations, right? I mean, when you're on the TSC and you're talking about governance stuff, you have a specific place to do that, and that's mostly what you're talking about. I will say that most of the integration test calls that I'm on, the broad conversation is usually about infrastructure or it's about distribution. And then that sucks all the air out of the room for people who want to talk about how to do tests, what they should do in tests, the problems they're having with their tests, like actually developing it or like seeing things when they see it running in Jenkins or what have you. And so I mean,
So maybe we need like a test hackers call. That's
Yeah.
how we typically namespace these calls. Like, it'll be a cluster hackers call. That's not about like the projects that are making functionality on clustering. Those are the people who are
Or we can just,
in the trenches doing clustering work or something.
I mean, I run the meeting, I can just start off with test updates.
Yeah, but I think the request is more around
Yeah,
like,
and you.
from my perspective, I could ask about this stupid virtual environment issue that I was hitting the last couple of days. And like, the in-test call has too much going on, I guess, for those types of questions.
Yeah,
For
so-
test hacker questions.
So a different call is a good idea because some of my employees tried, to go on these calls and ask questions, but they told me most of the topics that were raised there were info issues and not testing. So if you have a weekly call, it's a good start.
Yeah, I like that as a.
And I think also a new maybe distribution
A
list.
list, yeah, new email list.
Again, because when you want to ask a question about testing and you enroll to the integration test today, all you see there are info issues, so
Yeah.
you don't feel it's the appropriate place. So maybe it's a good start to do.
I'm not so on board with creating like formal governance differences and like new projects and Like the email list doesn't bother me too much, but I do like the idea of like creating more of a social structure around people who are trying to learn to write tests and where they can get support.
Yeah.
And I think doing that through a meeting is good. I think with regard to the email list, that's just like, you know, a personal thing around adjust your perspective and be willing to send to this group and stuff.
Yeah, but you don't think from a new person getting to ODL perspective, okay?
But it's intimidating to some
Yeah,
people.
people from my team. Okay. I told them to enroll to the integration mail list in order to ask questions, learn about other people's problems, and you get tons of mails a day, and it's not related to anything you're working on. If you have even, you know, not so active mailing list, but all the correspondence there is about testing, I think it will be better.
This is the whole argument that people talk about when they talk about how OpenStack does something, versus maybe how OpenDaylight does it. OpenDaylight tends to have separate lists for each specific thing. OpenStack tends to have like one monolithic one where there's tags and you have to filter through.
Yeah, OpenDaylight does that too, and I hate it.
Yeah, and so it can be problematic, right? I mean, there's probably value there, at least creating a community where we can have conversations.
We can definitely easily create new mailing lists. That's not hard.
And a new test focus call.
I think the test focus call is a really awesome idea, just
Yeah.
for getting more social traction. I like that idea a lot. I'm open to the opinion of new people around the mailing list thing. I know that I probably have like entrenched views about that, but less clear to me if that's like a super particularly helpful thing. But the new call, I love that.
I have a question. Where does the line fall between specific project tests and integration tests that's supposed to take care of all the projects? Because most of the test issues that people are discussing are mostly focused on a single project, not the infrastructure itself. On the other hand, it seems like integration tests are the people that are actually doing most of the work on the tests. So where does the line exactly fall between being a test issue and a per project issue?
So I guess the structure is that there are test owners, people who are supposed to be responsible for the test of a certain feature or project. So those people, you know, they should show up to integration dev calls, they should be involved in the integration test community, but they really have a tighter connection to the project, right? They're writing system tests, they're writing CSIT tests. There are other people who work on it tests from, no, it's basically all like that. I mean, that's kind of the structure.
Maybe for that, like for the test call, if you have like someone from each main project or something like that, like a test leader or something.
Yeah.
It'll make people.
But there's probably like 5 of them out of 54 projects.
Well, it's a start.
That would require them to name
I
the
think
test.
They got a name,
They're
yeah,
supposed to
but
name them, but I don't think they show up in our.
they don't do system tests.
Oh, and they don't even do that, so, okay.
Yeah, I mean, think about who it is. It's Luis, it's sometimes me. Who else?
Yeah, from NetGuard experience, we've been dealing same old directly from most of the stuff, which doesn't really make sense.
Venkat, he's good, but there's 54 projects. We should have like a bunch of these.
Okay. We need to
Another small question. Code coverage. Something that ever came up in ODL, like having through the infrastructure some way to look at code coverage, ask projects to meet.
Yep. We have an automated tool for doing that, Solar.
Yeah, it's on the Nexus server.
It collects code coverage data and
Does
the
Solar
web
integrate
UI.
with CSIT today?
It's mostly, I think, unit tests that covers.
Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with robot, right? It's always the
Unit tests.
in-project level integration and unit tests.
Yeah, unit tests and the integration tests between like Carafe module.
But it's not like a robot level
Yeah.
coverage.
And I think we would love to see like what percent of coverage CSIT covers today. For
Well,
some-
see, there's no percentage for CSIT. It's the unit test that has coverage.
Yeah, yeah.
You can see that, but
But I mean, that's part of the dashboard conversation, I think, that we
Yeah.
display sort of, and we had a conversation about it last summer. You're obviously going to talk about it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question, I think we probably all love that, especially if someone was willing to drive the work to build it, but I don't know what tool would use. I mean, I'm not aware of a robot code coverage tool, basically.
there's a spectrometer talk of PDF, and they want to talk about these dashboard things and post it in spectrometer, but it takes a dedicated person to do this work. You can't just ask for it because
There's no one to do that. It's part-time for both the people working on it right now, so it's, yeah.
Okay.
anyways, we'll get a new call, we'll get a new mailing list, and we'll focus on tests.
Yeah, no, okay, just raising the problem, I think it will be improving the situation. Thank you.
Yeah.
Trello board for QA tasks, maybe start saying what kind of test we're going to do in each version and how, and also document manual testing in order to save time.
Yeah, I think the problem you're noticing is that the integration group covers everything, including tests, and tests has kind of not been a focus of the group as a whole. So when you join the integration list, you don't see anything about tests.
Yeah.
And the other problem is that system test is up to each project. The controller project needs to do their own system tests. Some companies.
So I'm Revital. I'm the head of QA automation at ContextStream. We were a startup that was acquired by HPE about a year ago. And actually, me and my team started working with OpenDaylight a few months ago. And when I started making the testing plans which features I want to test and how, I noticed a huge gap in ODL for me at least. And it's about the difference between testing tasks and dev tasks and how they are being handled. Sure, doing all kinds of testing, but we have no idea what they're doing and if there's some area of the code that is not being tested at all. So, of course, if we can track testing tasks, we can improve our testing coverage, we can save time, and then more automated tests will be written and be upstreamed, and then we can achieve better quality. So I just there's no easy fix that will be suitable for all projects, but I think there are some stuff that we can do, but I'll be glad to hear from the people here what they think about it. I suggested opening handled, so let's start. Hi, Gidi. Oh, we were waiting for you.
They're doing the release discussion right now. Everybody's.
Okay, we'll do it anyway. Okay, so I just presented myself. So, okay, so project testing in ODL. So actually, like I said, when I started making the testing plans, I noticed that I couldn't find any place where I can see what other people in each project are doing regarding testing. Like in NetVirt, for example, for the dev tasks, you have Trello boards where you can track who is implementing which feature. So I signed up for the integration project, and then all I saw there were infra issues that VMs are failing and reports that are being fixed, but I couldn't find where people say which kind of features they are going to test and how. And in dev tasks, it's already being handled pretty well. So no visibility of testing effort being done, and people are doing the same work. Like for Boron, we have features that we know that other companies are also interested in, and for